Maria Victoria.
Thank you,
nice
Maria.
to see you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. My name is María Victoria Soulé, and I'm a Spanish language instructor and a researcher at the Cyprus University of Technology Language Center. So I will be speaking about our digital competence trainer guide. So in this talk, I will present our trainer's guide, which was developed to assist teachers trainer in language education. The guide is structured in 3 parts, as you can see here in this slide. The first part is an overview of training methodologies for language learning in face-to-face, online, and blended formats. The second part is a framework model for teacher training based on the experience from 2 series of webinars conducted by the DC4LT project in 2021, as Mikhail mentioned at the beginning of today's event. And the last part of the guide is a collection of 16 teacher training modules, which are fully described and available as OERs. So as I said, the first part is called Training Methodologies for Language Learning in Face-to-Face, Online, and Blended Format. And in this part, we explored various learning theories and methods that could be suitable for language teaching in online and blended formats. And this first part, begins with an introduction to contemporary theories of learning. And it's then followed by a literature review of different learning methodologies that can guide the design and implementation of training workshops addressed to language teachers. And it concludes with an overview of various training methods and techniques that can be used for the design and delivery of the training activities. So the ultimate objective was to delineate an array of learning theories, methodologies, and training techniques to enable us to select the ones that are most suitable for the planned online or face-to-face training workshops for language teachers. So here you can see the review of learning theories and methodologies, which inform the design of the training on digital competence for language teachers. Among others are social constructivism, ecological theory, constructionism, and connectivism. And here is an example of what you can find in the trainer's guide. For example, here you have social constructivism and connectivism. In the guide, we discuss this series and the others, as I mentioned before, following the work of their founders, Vygotsky for social constructivism and Siemens for connectivism, for example. And the review of the learning theories and teaching methodologies was published in this paper that you can see here, and that Mikhail also mentioned at the beginning of today's event, which is learning theories and teacher methodologies for the design of training in digital competence for language teachers. I think the link to all the publication was shared before with you in the chat. So this first part of the guide, also we also outlined different training methods and techniques that can be used for teacher training, targeting language teachers and their digital competencies. And you can see, for example, we included a collaborative work, sharing experiences, short lecture, demo, or presentation. And again, here is an example of what you can find in the guide. In this example of a short lecture, we provide a description of this technique and as well an example how this could be used for training workshops. So I move now to the second part of the trainer's guide, which is the framework model for teacher training. Here we have, this model is organized around the content and delivery of the training workshop. More concretely, the reproducible model consists of 16 units, interactive sessions that can be delivered online or face-to-face. The target audience of the DC4LT workshop is language teachers with different level of digital competence. And the learning objectives, which are 6 objectives drawn from the 6 broader categories that Maria just mentioned in her presentation about the framework. So, for example, these 6 learning objectives include, as you can see here in the slide, a theoretical component, but a practical one as well. As you can see, for example, in technology, in this category, the learning objectives of technology, for example, are to improve the general overview of digital technologies used for language learning and to get a practical experience of applying selected technologies in practice. And the next category already mentioned by Maria in the previous presentation is pedagogy, which again has a theoretical component and a practical one. And the same applies for assessment, for content, for professional development, and for learner support. I move now to the final part of the guide, which is a collection of 16 teacher training modules or units. The model training workshop consisted of 16 units, as I said, which you can see here on your screen, and it was offered in 2 rounds. The first round took place in March 2021, and based on the feedback we obtained from the participants, as well as our own self-reflection on each of the sessions, the second round was developed, which took place last October. And here are some examples of these training units. For example, teachers training models and teacher methodologies in CALL, WebQuest 2.0, collaborative learning tools for enhancing language learning, virtual exchange, response tools, cloud technologies, OERs in language education, interactive videos for language teaching, and the list continues. So we have 16 training units. How were all these training units incorporated in the trainer's guide? Well, each training unit includes a summary of the module, the learning objectives, the target audience, the training techniques, the tools, the pre-activities required to attend this workshop, the recommended reading for the workshop, how to implement this workshop online, the theoretical background, and some references. So again, I will illustrate this with an example that you can find in the trainer's guide. You have, for example, here, this workshop is collaborative learning tools for enhancing language learning with different learning objectives. For example, how to work collaboratively online, how to use social technologies, or how to use collaboratively writing tools, how to assess collaborative writing, and more. In the guide, you will also find the target audience, which, for example, this workshop was designed for, in this case, basic or novice proficient. Again, the training techniques that I mentioned earlier, and for this particular workshop, were short lecture, demo, collaborative work, small groups, group discussions, and shared experiences. Again, in the guide, we include the tools that were used for this workshop, and there is a link for each tool so that the reader can access these tools and obtain more information or get access, and if the reader wants to use it for their classes. Again, it has recommended readings. In the context of the workshop, there was some recommended reading, as I said before, which could help the participants to make the most of the workshop during the workshop. There is a detailed description of the steps that needs to be followed in order to implement this workshop. The theoretical background in which the workshop was built for, in this case, it was constructionism, and again, the references for this particular workshop. But this applied for the 16 units. It's the same structure. So to conclude, the DC4LT training workshop, what we saw is that it has confirmed that language teachers need to develop digital skills and practice novel teaching methodologies, and that the successful design of a training workshop depends on grounding the use of technologies on specific theoretical and methodological aspirations. And finally, that the teaching and learning culture is expected to evolve only if teaching practices are updated bottom-up rather than top-down due to technological advancements. So thank you very much. And I think now my colleague Mijaila and Elisabetta will continue. Thank you.